Balanced plans have been around for a long time, but really became a larger part of the market when loaded plans started becoming unaffordable. Insurance companies still needed to sell health insurance policies, so they needed to make them cheaper. Balanced plans look the same as a loaded, but are scaled back to reduce costs. Balanced plans are set up for you, the consumer, to assume more risk. The tough part for the shopper is telling the difference between risk that is reasonable and risk that is not. High-end balanced plans do the reasonable risk, whereas low-end plans give you risk that is really unmanageable. And there's a ton of plans somewhere in the middle. Let's take a look at how a company might change a plan to make it cheaper. We'll compare it to a loaded plan as we go. And remember, there's hundreds of variations here, so we'll stay with some of the common examples. First of all, let's look at deductibles. Usually these deductibles look very much the same, and they move up in the same $500 increments. Now, a high-end plan is going to change the risk a little. So instead of having 2 deductibles per family, you might have 3. A reasonable way to lower your premium by taking on a little more risk. A middle type of balanced plan might have a deductible for each person. If you have 5 people in your family, each person would have their own annual deductible for a total of 5 deductibles. A low-end balanced plan could have a deductible for each person, but also make it per person per event. So if your daughter breaks her leg in January, she has a deductible for that. If she needs her appendix out in July, she would have another separate deductible for that as well. We don't say these types of plans are bad, but when people shop for coverage, it's tough to tell if your plan is doing this or if it's not. Now, there can also be many more types of separate deductibles for hospital admission, outpatient facility, access, and so on. You would only see these on low-end plans. Let's take a look at coinsurance. Compared to a loaded plan, you'll see changes to coinsurance in 2 ways. The first is that you're likely to see higher percentages that you're responsible for, like 30 and 50%. It's also likely that you'll see the dollar value of that percentage increase. Instead of an 80-20 split resulting in another $1,000 for you, that 20% could mean $2,000 or maybe $5,000. Really low-ended plans would have coinsurance with no cap. This means that your 20, 30, or 50% goes on indefinitely with no end. You'd never reach 100% coverage. You'd also see the same types of things here as 3 times per year, or it might be per person, or it could be per person per event. 100% coverage can also be different. For the most part, medium to high-end balanced plans do a good job with this, and you're not in any danger. However, low-end plans get very creative in making it look good on the face, but give you much less coverage when you look at the details. So you could get stuff that's less comprehensive, lower quality, more limitations, and you could get very frustrated with it. A couple of real-life examples. You might have a plan that says ground ambulance is covered at 100%, only to see in the fine details that this 100% is only up to $200 per trip. Now, ambulance rides routinely cost around $1,500 in Michigan. You'd be out $1,300 extra on a plan like this. The same type of thing could exist for more serious things like outpatient chemotherapy. It might say 100% coverage for $2,000 per day. Sometimes chemo can cost upwards of $6,000 for each treatment. That's a $4,000 hit on the policyholder. Now in this area too, there can also be smaller annual or lifetime caps or amounts. This has recently changed with healthcare reform, but some plans are still at the minimum guidelines. With the day-to-day portion, the same type of thing goes on. Coverage is scaled back to reduce cost. And again, it's scaled back a little, it's scaled back a little bit more, or it's scaled back a lot. What you'll see is that doctor visits are generally higher, and the plans now become limited in number and or limited in scope. A change with healthcare reform is that all plans now have full preventative coverage, so this limitation regarding wellness would not apply. You might have a plan, though, that only has 2 visits per year for sickness-type visits. It could be 3, it could be 4, lots of variations here. It's just important that you know that you should look for it. Prescriptions might be done a little bit differently. You might have a $15 copay for a generic, maybe a $35 for brand name, and maybe your brand name kicks in after a $150 deductible per person. You could also have a plan that only covers generic only, and there's no coverage at all for brand name medications, and you get brand name discounts. But brand name prescription medications are never, ever covered on a plan. Now, what's interesting here is there can be a great range of costs for a balanced plan. You could have a really low-end plan that costs $150 a month. A high-end balance plan maybe costs $600 or $700 a month. You'll still see these two sections, which cost, a little bit less in each area compared to a loaded plan, maybe $300 here and $300 here, as a result of taking on more risk. What's important to know as a shopper is that 85% of plans quoted online fall into this category. When you get quotes, you'll see balance plans all over the place. And remember, you have to look at the detail. Now that you understand that there's so much range here, you can look at some specific areas to see what type of plan it is. You no longer need to guess. Use this as a benchmark to look at plans, and you should know a lot more when you're shopping. We'll now move to the simple plan, which is another category in health insurance.